Hi, here I am again, the Natural Learning Society. What are we going to do with this thing? One thing we could do is that anyone who is involved in language learning, at university, in schools, in language schools, wherever, please start protesting. If you are forced to learn from uninteresting content, if teachers come in and give you photocopied news articles that they've selected for you, if they spend all kinds of time on explaining points of grammar that you can't understand and won't be able to remember, if you are not learning in a natural way, stand up and say, I don't want to learn this way. I want to learn naturally. Because if I learn naturally, I'm going to learn better, I'm going to learn faster, I'm going to enjoy it. So I think we should start getting some protest movements going across all the schools and campuses and elsewhere, where people are being forced to try to learn and understand grammatical and theoretical concepts that the brain is not yet ready to deal with. And let me stress that again. The brain will figure out its own rules. The grammar explanation can help. I'm not saying it doesn't help. And my approach in dealing with grammar is to buy simply the smallest possible grammar book, and I occasionally leaf through it. And what I find is that occasionally leafing through it, I see some things that remind me of aspects of the language that I have already started to observe. So that through naturally absorbing the language, the brain is starting to observe things, but certain other things it doesn't quite see yet. And sometimes these things have to be pointed out. And so leafing through a grammar book may help you to notice things. And in fact, that's the purpose of correcting. We correct things, not because we think that by correcting something that, say, the learner has written or said, that immediately the learner will then be able to say it correctly, that immediately the brain will have adjusted and now say those things correctly. That's not how it works. But sometimes correcting something helps make the learner more observant. And I get back to Spitzer. He talked about the 3 key attitudes that we need for learning success. And again, he emphasized the importance of input, appropriate input, meaningful input. He mentioned how the brain is constantly learning. So we know these things. The brain is constantly learning. But the brain needs 3 things. It needs a certain degree of alertness in general and attentiveness to specific issues that it has to identify. Because sometimes they can just go by and they aren't noticed. The second thing is the more emotional connection there is between the learner and the subject that they're learning, the better. And of course the third thing is motivation. But if we deal with this alertness, attentiveness, it is certainly true that if you make a mistake a few times and you're corrected, you start to get a little bit aware, more aware of that particular issue. And so then hopefully you will start to notice that structure, those words, when you're listening and reading. So you'll say, yeah, I had trouble expressing this concept, or I used this structure and it was wrong. So let's try and focus a little more when that particular word or that particular concept shows up in my listening and reading, which is hopefully enjoyable because you selected it. So the grammar explanations have to be, and the corrections have to be more along the lines of helping you to notice things, not in the hope that you will now learn this rule and therefore get it right. And I should add that a lot of, again, in the interest of keeping things natural and meaningful, we should object to exercises and drills. And we should say, no, just give me interesting stories to read, and if you want, I will write for you, and I will speak for you. And when I write and speak naturally, which is natural communication, you can correct me if you want, not too often, please. And this will help make me a little more attentive to those issues that I'm struggling with. It'll just make certain words and certain structures stickier in the brain. But the explanation itself is not going to immediately correct me. So, when you are confronted with unnatural learning in your classroom, protest and say, I don't want to learn this way. I want to learn the natural way. And I want to join the Natural Language Society. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.